Then through the course of this week, he has been showing all these pictures on social media, a person who has been notoriously private throughout most of his very public life. And again, Ryan Clark, I'll start with you on this thought because I'm always interested in your perspective on this. I mean, Aaron Rodgers has been involved with very famous women in the past, right? I mean, Danica Patrick and Olivia Munn, and we never saw anything of their private life. And now all of a sudden, he's in this situation. The team is on the field, and we're seeing him running amok in a bathing suit in Hawaii. Do you, Ryan Clark, believe that is a coincidence?
Absolutely not. What is, I did it on purpose for 500, Aaron? Absolutely. Listen, Aaron Rodgers wanted to make sure that we saw these things. And at the least, someone as intelligent, as calculated, as smart, as petty as Aaron Rodgers is, would at least have to say, you know what, it's okay to post these. That when even though I'm not at OTAs, the Green Bay Packers are having to talk about me every day. We're on Get Up having the Aaron Rodgers watch. It's okay to post these and show that I'm having a good time. It's okay to post these and show that I'm not concerned about the Green Bay Packers, that football isn't the number one thing on my mind at the moment. And Aaron Rodgers understands what this looks like. He understands that people from the outside who have a perception of him of being the bad guy in this case are going to continue to believe that. But if I'm the Green Bay Packers, and not only is Aaron Rodgers not there, but the wide receivers aren't there, and then when I see Aaron Rodgers, he's out already practicing lines for his first script in a major blockbuster film that will be shot in Hawaii, it makes me think Aaron Rodgers may be winning right now.
Yeah, so bear in mind, and this is a week, Bart Scott, that began with Aaron Rodgers appearing on SportsCenter. Now, he was doing that out of respect and his friendship with Kenny Mayne, but one thing or another, right. He said a lot of stuff on that show, stuff he didn't have to say, and he did, and now we're seeing all of these images of him. What do you think of the messages that are being sent here, Bart?
Well, I think it's passive-aggressive, right? He's not saying anything, but he's telling you everything with his actions. He's telling you that he's unbothered. He's telling you that he has options. And unlike Ryan Clark, I think his body doesn't look that bad. I think the only guy that may be able to mess with him on TV is Pat Sajak, because he looks like he's on a vegan-based diet right now, but it's all good, though. You know, Aaron Rodgers understands that he doesn't have to be at training camp right now, that he can live his best life, and he's going to understand that he has to play this thing out. Somebody has to be the villain in these situations, and he doesn't mind being the villain. He's saying, hey, you guys are not running an organization the way that I need to be for it to be ran. I want to empower myself and embolden myself. So listen, until you guys figure it out, I'm just going out here and I'm gonna have some fun, play my guitar, sing to my hot girlfriend, and make everybody envious of my life.
So, Dan Graziano, let's kind of work through this here. You've got the Packers organization, okay, and they're approaching this as they tend to do. They're a buttoned-up group, and they're going to do things their way. And you got Rodgers doing things his way. So where does it stand? And I guess more to the point, where does it reach a pressure point? Where is the point at which this thing has to have some sort of collision?
That depends on which side's resolve is greater. So if Aaron Rodgers wants to sit out minicamp, mandatory minicamp in June, they can fine him upwards of $90,000, which it won't bother him. He's already kissed off a $500,000 workout bonus by missing the OTAs. If he wants to sit out training camp, they can fine him $50,000 a day. That becomes a little more serious if you play that out for an entire training camp. And if he sits out games, then the Packers know, hey, this guy's serious. Maybe we do need to trade him. But if he decides to come back, right, if he decides I'm not going to hang my teammates out to dry, all this stuff I said about I like the coaching staff, I like my teammates, I have to back that up, or else people are going to know that the stuff I said on SportsCenter on Monday was just to get the fans on my side. Then the Packers' leverage becomes stronger at that point. He shows up and he plays. But until we see how serious he is about missing mandatory work, missing work days that are going to result in a serious financial impact on him, then there's no reason for the Packers to move, and that's where we are. We're in a stalemate.
We've seen a lot of holdouts over the course of time, Ryan. I can only really think of one where it resulted, Carson Palmer, in a guy being willing to say, I'm retiring, I'm not coming back. I mean, knowing Aaron Rodgers the little bit that we do, what is your sense if the Packers really do decide to call this bluff, if indeed it is a bluff? What's your sense of what he does?
My sense is that Aaron Rodgers sits out. when you look at his actions, when you look at his demeanor, when you see the fact that this isn't necessarily stressing Aaron Rodgers. This seems like Aaron Rodgers has made a decision. It's about the way he feels about this organization. And if they don't fix it or trade him, then he's going to stay home. He's going to sit out a year. Quarterbacks are playing longer and longer now. And so Aaron Rodgers believes that he has 3, 4, or maybe even 5 more good years left. And if he believes that, obviously with the way he played last year, other teams will believe that he'll have an opportunity to continue his career, to finish his career somewhere strong, and continue to build his legacy. So Aaron Rodgers will stay home, or he'll stay in Hawaii, or he'll host Jeopardy. But if the Packers call his bluff, I believe he's their Huckleberry.
Do you, Bart? Do you think he's willing to go that far?
I mean, to Ryan's point, right, this is a man of principle. This is a guy that fell in the draft and remembers everybody that was taken ahead of him. He's a guy that I believe is willing to sit out and play the long game, understanding that he didn't play 3 years of his beginning of his career. So his body should be fresh. Mm-hmm. And what's another year if he's going to get what he wants? Also, I remember the saga with Barry Sanders, and Barry Sanders decided not to play because he was just done. And then so much more that he loved himself more than he loved the game. He walked away because he refused to play for the Lions. Carson Palmer did the same thing. What a shame it would be if Aaron Rodgers walks away from the game and the Green Bay Packers get nothing as far as compensation for it when they could get multiple ones and multiple players if that's what they decided to do. At some point, they got to say, hey, it ain't going to work. Let's see if we can get the best compensation that we can get. Now, that may take a season, or it may take, cooler heads prevailing and coming together and say, listen, it ain't going to happen. You can't change my mind. I don't care how many times you guys want to fly out and see me. It's a wrap. See you later.
Graziano, put a quick ribbon on it. Go.
Yeah, look, I mean, the Palmer and Barry Sanders situations were players that felt like they weren't in a position where the team was doing everything it could. Aaron Rodgers is on a team that goes to the NFC Championship game every single year. If he's willing to sit out because of a personal beef he has with the GM, that's fairly unprecedented. If he doesn't want to win a Super Bowl in Green Bay because he can't stand the idea of Brian Gutekunst getting credit for it, that's a whole different level of petty.